Right now, inside Arsenal's recruitment department, there is a very specific kind of pressure building. A move for a right-sided defender has just hit a wall. An official approach has gone in for Jarell Quansah, and it has been turned down flat. Not softened, not delayed, just rejected, with the selling club making it clear they do not want to let him go. That is the moment we are stepping into. Not the background, not the history, just the sharp edge of a transfer window, where one of Arsenal's clearest defensive targets has just told them no. For now. At the same time, on the other side of the pitch, a different kind of departure is quietly being confirmed. Nwaneri, a player who broke into the first team as a 15-year-old and was talked about as a generational talent, is being spoken about by his own manager in language that sounds like a goodbye. Not an angry goodbye, a calm, considered, almost inevitable one. So in the space of a single day, Arsenal are dealing with two very different signals. One door closing on the way in, one door opening on the way out. And underneath both of these stories sits something bigger, a pattern in how Mikel Arteta is building this squad, and it traces directly back to lessons learned under Pep Guardiola. Here is what is actually at risk in this moment. If Arsenal cannot get a deal done for a natural centre-back who can operate at right-back, their defensive rebuild stalls at exactly the point where they were trying to replicate the approach that made Manchester City so dominant for so long. Riccardo Calafiori was signed to play that role on the left. Without a right-sided equivalent, the back four is unbalanced, and the entire defensive philosophy Arteta has been building toward is left half-finished. On the other side, if Nwaneri leaves without the club recouping a fee that reflects his development, Arsenal lose a homegrown talent they nurtured from the age of 15, at a moment when Max Dauman's emergence has made that decision easier to justify, but no less costly in terms of what could have been. Before we go further into how these two stories connect and what they tell us about where this Arsenal squad is heading, if you want deeper analysis like this on every twist of the Arsenal transfer window, hit that subscribe button now. This channel is built for people who want the full picture, not just headlines. Let us get into it properly. The Osimhen statement. Let us start with Victor Osimhen, because his words matter more than they might first appear. Speaking directly about the swirl of transfer speculation around him, Osimhen said this in his own words. He said he is only focusing on his work. He said these kinds of things happen during the transfer window, and he does not know what will happen after that. He said he is here, focusing on his work, and when the time comes, he and his camp will think about what comes later. Now here is the analysis. That is a controlled, professional answer, and it is worth noticing what it does not say. It does not deny interest from other clubs. It does not confirm he is staying beyond this window. It does not rule anything out. What it does is buy time, publicly, while keeping his focus visibly on the pitch. For a club like Arsenal, that kind of measured response from a forward is exactly what you want during a period when other transfer stories are dominating the conversation. It tells you Osimhen is not distracted, but it also tells you the situation around his future is genuinely open-ended, and nobody, including Osimhen himself, is pretending otherwise. The Hinshelwood pursuit next. There is real movement on a young midfielder from Brighton. Arsenal are reportedly leading the race to sign a 21-year-old midfielder who has emerged as a top priority for Mikel Arteta ahead of the 2026-27 season. Direct contact has already been made with his representatives, and Manchester City and Manchester United are both interested as well. Brighton would prefer to keep their academy graduate, but a bid somewhere in the region of £43 million to £51 million could reportedly be enough to get a deal over the line. Here is what stands out to me. This is a rumour, and I want to be completely clear about that. It has not been confirmed as an agreed transfer. But the fact that three of the biggest clubs in English football are circling the same young midfielder tells you everything about how highly rated this player is inside the game. For Arsenal specifically, showing they are willing to compete with Manchester City and Manchester United for a talent like this signals something important, that they see themselves as equals in these conversations now, not as a club hoping to pick up whoever the bigger sides do not want. Manchester City's Community Shield situation now to the other side of Sunday's Community Shield fixture. Manchester City have provided an injury update ahead of that match. Rodri will miss the game as he continues his recovery from minor back surgery. Erling Haaland, on the other hand, is expected to be fit and available, despite sitting out part of Thursday's training session. City's head coach Enzo Maresca confirmed that one other player is a doubt, with the rest of the squad otherwise available. This matters for how we read the Community Shield itself. Losing Rodri is significant for City. He is one of the most important midfield anchors in world football, and his absence changes the calculation for how that game might unfold. Haaland being fit is the bigger relief for City because without their two most influential players available together, the gap between the sides could have widened considerably. For Arsenal, walking into that fixture knowing Rodri is unavailable is a genuine tactical advantage, even if it is one shaped entirely by circumstance rather than anything Arsenal have done themselves. The Quansah rejection. This is the story we opened with, and it deserves proper attention. Arsenal have made an official approach for Jarell Quansah. Bayer Leverkusen rejected that initial approach and made it clear they do not want to sell the defender. Arsenal remain seriously interested, and it remains to be seen whether they will return with an improved offer in the coming days. Let us be precise here, because precision matters. This is not a collapsed deal. This is not Arsenal walking away. This is a first approach being knocked back, which in modern football negotiations is often simply the opening move rather than the final word. Clubs frequently reject initial bids as a negotiating tactic, to signal value, to test resolve, or genuinely because they want more time before considering a sale. The fact that Arsenal are described as seriously interested and that an improved offer is being considered tells us this pursuit is very much alive. What it does confirm, though, is that Leverkusen are not desperate to sell, and any deal that does happen will likely cost Arsenal more than their opening number. Timber's recovery timeline. Turning to fitness news that touches the defensive picture directly. Mikel Arteta has spoken about whether Jurrien Timber will be fit before the international break. Arteta said he does not know, that they have to wait and see. He said Timber needs to start training with the group in the next week or so, hopefully, and then they will see how he progresses from there. He described it as a long-term issue and said the club wants to make sure every step they take is the right one. The caution in that language is deliberate, and it is worth sitting with. Arteta is not giving a target date. He is not promising a specific match for Timber's return. He is describing a process, carefully staged, with no fixed endpoint yet. For a club actively pursuing a natural centre-back who could play right-back, this is not a coincidence. If Timber's recovery is genuinely open-ended, that increases the urgency behind finding cover in that position, which connects directly back to the Quansah pursuit and the broader defensive strategy we will get into shortly. Winning the league. While Guardiola was still there now to a set of comments from Arteta that go beyond transfers and speak to the achievement itself. Speaking about how special it felt to win the league while Guardiola was still managing in the Premier League, Arteta said it was obviously one of the biggest challenges he has faced in his career because he knows the standards. He said City had the backroom, the stability, and the quality to go and do it again. So it was a real challenge, but he took it in a way that meant regardless of what happened, it would make Arsenal better and push boundaries in every department of the club. He said when he arrived, he had a sense of how far behind Arsenal were because he had witnessed the daily operation and the level required to win it. And doing it in the time they did, he said, is something they should feel proud of. This is Arteta giving real insight into the psychological weight of competing directly against the manager who shaped him. What stands out is the framing. He does not talk about beating Guardiola as the goal in itself. He talks about the standard Guardiola represented as the benchmark that forced Arsenal to improve in every department. That is a mindset built on respect rather than rivalry for its own sake, and it explains a lot about why so many of Arsenal's recent decisions, from recruitment to tactical setup, appear to borrow directly from the City blueprint. Arteta is not hiding that influence, he is confirming it, in his own words. On players being sold for over £100 million, Arteta was also asked whether it has surprised him to see players sold for over £100 million. He said yes, it has, that he would not have bet on it. But that is the market, and it means there are clubs happy to invest, or who believe the valuations are accurate, and that is fair. He said the value of a player is what somebody is willing to pay, and if a club has done that, that is the value, and it is the right one, because someone is happy to sell, someone is happy to buy, and in the middle, a player is happy to move. He said he thinks that is fair. This is Arteta being remarkably candid about the economics of the modern transfer market. He is not complaining about inflated prices, he is essentially validating them as a natural function of supply, demand and mutual agreement. For an Arsenal supporter watching the club chase defenders like Quansah and Ramon, this comment is a useful window into how Arteta personally views valuation disputes. He does not see high fees as unfair or irrational, he sees them as the market functioning correctly. That mindset matters when we consider whether Arsenal will eventually pay above their opening offers to get the defensive targets they want. Arteta, on sensing Guardiola's departure. There is also this remarkable admission from Arteta about whether he knew Guardiola might leave City before it was announced. He said 100% not, but that he had some feeling and some understanding that this could happen. He said you could sense it in the last year that there could have been a situation of it happening. But with someone like Guardiola, he could wake up in the morning excited about what he sees around him and carry on doing it, as he has done for 10 years, which nowadays is something incredible. What this tells us is that even those closest to the Premier League's competitive landscape, people who face Guardiola regularly and study his methods, did not have concrete information about his departure, only instinct. Arteta's description of Guardiola's decade-long consistency as something almost unheard of in the modern game is also a quiet acknowledgement of just how rare that kind of sustained excellence is, and by extension, how significant a challenge Arsenal faced in trying to overcome it. The medical and performance department changes. Arteta was also asked about why Arsenal made major changes to the medical and performance departments. He said, first of all, thank you to them for all the incredible work they have done for the club, for the players, and for himself, and for where they have taken the club. He said, when you look to evolve and improve, you need to look across the entire club. He said they have made certain decisions that, in their opinion, will help them medium and long term. Asked if it was a difficult decision, he said they always are, because when you talk about people and you have such a strong relationship, it is always very, very tough. This is significant because it confirms these changes are genuine structural decisions, not reactions to a specific failure or crisis. Arteta frames it as part of a continuous evolution process, applied across the entire club, not isolated to one department because of a problem. The acknowledgement of how difficult these decisions are on a personal level also humanizes a side of football that often gets reduced to results and performance metrics. Behind every staffing change are real relationships being altered, and Arteta clearly does not take that lightly. Martinelli and the Galatasaray interest turning now to Gabriel Martinelli. Arsenal have been informed by Martinelli's camp that the player has no interest in joining Galatasaray. Arsenal are open to trading Martinelli if an attractive offer arrives and had received a €45 million offer from Galatasaray. This is an important distinction to draw for anyone following this story. The interest is real, the offer is real, €45 million is not a small number. But the players' camp rejecting the move changes the entire calculation. Arsenal being open to selling does not mean Arsenal are pushing him out. It means they would consider a good offer if it materializes, which is a very different position from actively shopping him around. With Martinelli's camp making their feelings clear, this particular move looks unlikely to progress further in its current form, regardless of how attractive the fee might be to Arsenal on paper. Maresca following Guardiola. At City finally, among the collected comments, Arteta discussed Enzo Maresca stepping into the role that Guardiola vacated. He said he does not know the intricacies, but he knows Maresca has the character and the knowledge to do an unbelievable job there. He said that is why Maresca has been selected, because City could probably pick anybody, and they have gone for Maresca for the right reasons. He said Maresca has demonstrated at every level what he has done, in the Champions League, at Chelsea, and now at City, and Arteta is sure he will do a great job. This is a rare moment of one rival manager offering genuine, specific praise for another, particularly one now occupying arguably the most demanding job in club football. Arteta's comment that City could have picked anybody and chose Maresca for the right reasons speaks to how highly regarded Maresca's recent work has been across multiple clubs. It also subtly reinforces the theme running through this entire story, that the influence Guardiola built at City is now being carried forward by someone new, while Arteta himself continues to draw on that same foundation at Arsenal. The defensive blueprint, explained properly. Now let us bring all of this together, because underneath every individual story sits one connected idea, and it is the most important thread of the entire situation. When Guardiola first took charge at Manchester City, there was heavy emphasis on getting the defence right, but in those early years, City leaned toward attacking full-backs pushing forward as auxiliary wingers. Fast forward a few seasons and Guardiola shifted that approach entirely. In one particular season, City fielded one of the best defences anywhere in Europe, built predominantly on 4 natural centre-backs playing across the entire back line. Guardiola used a combination of central defenders in that back 4 for much of that season, and it worked extremely well. Mikel Arteta now appears to be following that exact same pattern. The signing of Riccardo Calafiori to play left-back was the first clear signal of this approach, taking a naturally central defender and using his physicality, composure, and reading of the game in a wide defensive role. Now, Arteta's pursuit of a new right-back mirrors this even further. Arsenal are known to be keen on one of 3 players, Jarell Quansah, Jarell Quansah, or Jacobo Ramon. What connects all 3 names is simple. Every single one of them is a natural centre-back capable of moving into right-back when required. With Arsenal already extremely strong in midfield and in attack, and having added Bruno Guimaraes to further protect the back four, it is becoming clear that Arteta is committing fully to power, size and physical strength across his defensive line. This was the approach that won Manchester City title after title under Guardiola. Arteta appears to be building the same foundation, while keeping Jurrien Timber and Miles Lewis-Skelly available as more attacking options when the tactical situation calls for it. This is not guesswork. This is a visible, deliberate pattern across multiple transfer windows. Calafiori first, now the pursuit of Quansah and Ramon, all pointing toward the same defensive philosophy that delivered sustained dominance under Guardiola. Arsenal are not copying City by accident, they are copying City by design, because Arteta watched that system succeed from the inside and clearly believes it is the correct foundation for sustained success at the highest level. Ethan Nwaneri, the quiet departure. Let us now turn fully to Ethan Nwaneri, because his situation deserves careful, honest treatment. Nwaneri broke into the first team picture as a 15-year-old and was widely expected to become the next major academy talent to establish himself permanently in Arsenal's starting 11. However, after spending part of last season on loan at Marseille and not producing the kind of form many had hoped for, real questions have emerged about his path forward at the club. Arsenal and Arteta clearly still rate Nwaneri highly, but the language Arteta used ahead of the Community Shield suggests the club is preparing supporters, gently, for his departure. Arteta said he wants Nwaneri to be at the club, but that they have to consider, in the medium and long term, what is best for the player as well. He said Nwaneri needs to play football, and that if he stays, it must be because the club can guarantee him those minutes. One of the central problems for Nwaneri is that he has not yet settled into one clearly defined position. Being versatile is valuable in theory, but without specialization, it can leave a young player without a clear pathway into the strongest version of the team. Add in Max Dauman's rapid emergence over the same period, and the pressure on Nwaneri's first-team opportunities only increases. With AC Milan reportedly showing genuine interest, there is now a realistic opportunity for Nwaneri to move to one of European football's most storied clubs. Arsenal have invested significantly in his development since he was 15 years old, so if a permanent departure does happen, it will need to be for a fee that properly reflects that investment. Another loan spell, similar to the one at Marseille, does not appear to be the direction being considered this time. Arteta's comments are honest and, frankly, fair to the player. Prioritizing Nwaneri's development and playing time over simply keeping him on the books is the kind of decision that, while difficult for supporters to accept given his early promise, reflects a club thinking beyond short-term squad numbers. It very much feels like a significant summer for Nwaneri, one that may well end with him moving on to find the consistent first-team football he needs at this stage of his career. Where this all leaves Arsenal. So here is where everything connects. Arsenal are simultaneously building outward and clearing space inward. On the defensive side, they are chasing a specific type of player, a natural centre-back capable of playing right-back, following the exact system that delivered years of dominance for Manchester City under Guardiola. That pursuit has hit an early obstacle with Quansah, but the interest remains serious, and an improved offer is reportedly still being considered. At the same time, midfield reinforcement is being pursued aggressively, with Arsenal leading the race for a highly rated Brighton midfielder, despite competition from two of the Premier League's other giants. Injury situations are being carefully monitored, both at Arsenal with Timber's long-term recovery, and at Manchester City ahead of the Community Shield, where Rodri's absence gives Arsenal a genuine tactical opening. On the outgoing side, Ethan Nwaneri's future looks increasingly likely to be away from the club, framed not as a falling out, but as a considered decision about what gives the player the best chance to develop. Gabriel Martinelli's situation is different again. Real interest exists from Galatasaray, but the player's own camp has made clear he does not want that move, which likely closes that particular door for now, regardless of the fee on the table. And running through every single one of these threads is Arteta's relationship with the standard Guardiola set. His own words make it clear, competing against that level of consistency, that level of backroom stability, forced Arsenal to improve across every department of the club. The medical and performance department changes, difficult as they clearly were on a personal level, are part of that same continuous effort to evolve. Even his comments on transfer valuations and on Enzo Maresca inheriting the City job show a manager who has fully internalized what it takes to compete at the very top, because he lived through the daily operation of the club that set that standard for the best part of a decade. Arsenal are not simply reacting to circumstances this summer. They are executing a plan, one built on defensive solidity through converted centre-backs, careful management of returning players like Timber, honest conversations with academy talents like Nwaneri about their futures, and a clear-eyed, almost business-like approach to the realities of the modern transfer market. Whether the Quansah pursuit eventually succeeds, whether Nwaneri does end up at AC Milan, whether the Community Shield without Rodri turns into a statement result for Arsenal, these are all threads that will resolve themselves in the coming days and weeks. But the underlying pattern is already visible, clear, and consistent. Mikel Arteta is building something with real structural intent, and the blueprint he is following was written directly across the pitch from him, season after season, by the very manager he is now trying to finally step out from under. That is where things stand. Thank you for watching this breakdown, and if you found this kind of detailed, fact-based analysis valuable, make sure you are subscribed, because there is a lot more of this coming as the transfer window continues to move.